beautiful souls. I'm so excited to see you on today's video. We got another interesting topic. We're going to talk on the issue on narcissistic abuse, and today is basically on self-sabotage, like why survivors self-sabotage themselves and completely ruin their lives. So this is something that a lot of survivors of narcissistic abuse do. I was doing it before as well, until I noticed it consciously and I started to change this pattern, this unhealthy, toxic pattern of behavior. But if you really, if you're here because someone redirected you to my videos, or if you're a long-term subscriber already, you will know that I do talk about these issues. So this self-sabotage behavior, survivors basically do this because when we grow up in an environment that is highly chaotic, is highly dysfunctional, and you don't really know what to expect, because every single day is different, right? Like every single day you have to people please, you have to walk on eggshells, you are basically not sure on what to really expect from either, like narcissistic parents, narcissistic partner, or even a narcissistic boss at work. And because this is very human, because we're human beings, we desire stability, we desire to predict our future in any ways. So if we are on this loop of subconscious behaviors, when we're on survival mode 24/7, our brain will literally create problems for ourselves to just solve or not solve, and then prove that we are basically doomed to suffer forever, for example. Also, if you are enjoying this content, please consider subscribing to my channel and following my socials. So yeah, let's continue. This is a very common behavior in narcissistic abuse survivors, because when we grow up without stability, when we grow up without safety, we subconsciously crave that safety, we crave that stability. And listen, being anxious of the future is very common, is very normal, is very human. But when you are an abuse survivor, this fear intensifies to the max, because you really want to survive, you really want to live. You are on flight or fight response. So it is on your best interest to predict, or at least to try to predict, what is going to happen. So you try to survive your way out when you are with the narcissistic family, or when you are with the narcissistic partner. Now, when you leave that environment, these self-sabotaging behaviors that probably you would be ignoring at first when you were still in the dysfunctional environment, these self-sabotaging behaviors are going to intensify, and you're going to notice that you do them. Maybe you're not going to notice at first, but if you're watching this video, you are definitely going to see of what I'm talking about. Now, some examples of this, of self-sabotaging behaviors that you might be asking, include, for example, when you are making friendships, when you're meeting people and you're talking with them, you might have an avoidant attachment. It's very common for survivors to either have an avoidant attachment style or an anxious attachment style. If you're familiar with the styles, please let me know in the comments down below which one you resonate with. But briefly explained, anxious attachment style is you being super codependent, being afraid of the person leaving. Eventually, it's the same thing. It's fear of the person leaving, and fear of the person not giving us, affection and the love that we suppose that we are getting. But the way that differentiates is that the anxious attachment, they run towards the avoidant, usually towards the other person, because they want closure, they want this connection, which happened with me as well many times, because I did relate to anxious attachment. Now I'm leaning more towards secure as I'm healing. But yeah, and then the avoidant attachment style is basically the one who runs away, who is not very comfortable with their emotions. And because they also were controlled by the narcissist, they prefer freedom. They don't want anyone to control them. They don't want anyone to dictate what their life is going to be. Because if they have this partner, or if they have this like parent or whoever that is controlling them, especially if it's a narcissist, they're going to lose themselves. And this is very scary for them. They're going to lose their identity. So what happens in these self-sabotaging behaviors, let's go back to the main topic, is that you are meeting new friends, you're meeting new people, and then you are super hyperfixated on the red flags. You're going to notice everything that the person does wrong. Instead of, focusing on meeting the person, on like being curious about them, you're going to be super fixated on the red flags. You're going to see, okay, this person is not texting me. This person is not showing me by my own means, by my own signs I consider are good, that they do care about me. So what are you going to do when you self-sabotage? You're going to leave first, because you can't afford to be hurt again. You can't afford to be rejected again, or you can't afford to be abandoned again. This usually happens to when you are abandoned in your childhood as well, with friends or like bullies, whatever, because you don't want to repeat the same thing. You're saying, okay, before they abandon me, I'm going to leave first. And this is how you self-sabotage. You don't even leave like the person to prove themselves to you, to show them that they are genuine. You do it first. You just leave the relationship. Or other signs might be like you pick up on fights on purpose to try to test your partner that they are not going to leave despite you being like this fucked up mess. This also happens a lot. Another self-sabotaging behavior that I noticed a lot, I went through it myself, just for you to be clear on this. So if you relate, I'm going to tell you that you are not alone, okay? You are not alone. So another self-sabotaging behavior is basically when you are taking, for example, an exam, a test, or whatever, and you are starting to write the questions, you're starting to write the answers, and then something inside you is feeling like, oh, this is, I'm going to fail, I'm going to do it wrong. So if I'm going to do it wrong, why am I going to do it anyways if I know that I'm going to do it wrong? And you just leave the paper like half done. This also happens with projects, personal projects, with work, with other things. You just leave things undone, like halfway done, because you feel that you're going to do it wrong and people are going to scold you. And again, this is not something that you are born with. This happens because in childhood, especially if you had like really abusive parents, so if you have really mature emotionally parents, they were scolding you for every tiny little mistake you had as a child growing up. They expected you to be the best at school, to constantly get good grades. You could have like, gotten good grades, or you were like one of the worst at school. Anyway, you had a lot of pressure, and this pressure is now as a childhood wound that you have, and is expressing yourself this way. Instead of finishing the product, the project, whatever you are doing, and going through the uncomfortable emotions that your inner child is telling you that, oh, I feel very uncomfortable because this is triggering me, the past. Like, when you experience triggers, your body's literally going to the past again. And until you don't heal these triggers, you're going to be stuck in the past, in your body and in your energy again and again. So when you're doing this projects, when you're taking this paper, you're feeling very triggered because your body is saying, if you do this, you're going to do it wrong and people are going to scold you, and now you're going to feel bad. Like, you are trying to predict the future here. Are you seeing this? So basically, self-sabotaging, as a summary, is a pattern of unconscious behavior that survivors have, that they try to protect themselves. They try to make themselves feel safe by trying to predict the future, but in reality they are just ruining their entire lives, because instead of like learning the skills necessary and their talents that they need, instead of just having these unrealistic expectations that the narcissist projected into them, they are stuck in this endless cycle where it's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy, where they project themselves that they can't do it, and they do everything in order to prove themselves that they don't do it. When in reality, I consider all survivors are perfectly capable of learning, doing things, achieving things. And this is what I have, like, many of my clients, many of my Becoming Phoenixes are learning in my program, in my 3 intensive months program. And they're learning how to become comfortable and safe with their emotions, so they go through the triggers and they eventually achieve everything that they wanted to do in their lives. Just as a summary here, you have to remind yourself that even if you try to prove yourself that you're incapable of having friends, or being the best in your class, or just being the best at work, or like being the best in your business, this is a false pattern. Like, this is not true. You really have to not really push forcefully through the triggers, but make yourself feel safe by feeling those triggers, and eventually you will go and get this go through this challenge and get the breakthrough and being comfortable within yourself, because it's just your brain trying to keep you feel safe, but it's really failing to do so. And in order to heal, you really have to heal your inner child first. So if you really enjoyed this video, if you really found this video valuable, let me know in the comments what part like really you resonated with, and leave this video a big thumbs up down below, subscribe, and if you are ready to heal your wounds, especially from self-sabotage, from narcissistic abuse, there's the link down below on my program. We can also chat, and I can also solve any questions or doubts that might come to you. See you in the next video. Bye!